Well, hello everybody. Pastor Randy here. It's a beautiful Monday. Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you. Hope you had a great weekend. We started last week talking about faith, picking the vine, the next part of the fruit of the Spirit, and we're looking at faith. Now, again, that is a very broad spectrum word in the world today because many people have faith in a lot of things. And many people create a lot of systems of faith, if you will. And again, it's even a popular name. But as it pertains to our walk with Christ, as it pertains to the visible, literal display of what we believe, I want us to look deeper as we continued studying on this from the perspective of Matthew 18, as Jesus is challenging about the faith of a child, the childlike faith. Obviously, Matthew chapter 5, as we talked about being a light that does no good if it's hidden. So I want us to look at the concept today in brief, that a faith that is never displayed, think about this, a faith never displayed produces no fruit. And if it produces no fruit, in turn, it helps no one. In other words, if you have an apple tree in your yard, okay, and the concept or the idea of that is not just for cosmetics, but you're going to use that apple tree to provide food, whether it's applesauce or apple pie or whatever the case, for your family. And that apple tree never ever produces one apple, it does you no good. It's fine to look at, but it has no value. Well, that's our faith. Faith can't simply just be something on display, but has no value or produces nothing. Jesus says in the book of John that if one produces much fruit, they please God. And so if we go back to the illustration given in Matthew 18, involving the child, Jesus, when they were asking him who's going to be the greatest, and he brought the child and said, this simple illustration, again, oftentimes is missed, but I want to try to give a little more clarity to that. It simply shows this. A child, as I said earlier, is the only one who has this quality. A child believes it because mom or dad or grandma or grandpa said so. There's no real big discussion that has to be had about it when they're little. We're not talking about when they get a little older and have a little more curiosity or a little more argumentative as a teenager or whatever. But rather when they're little. I look at my little grandchildren, they're 3 and 2. I can tell them anything I want. They're going to believe it because G said so. Now, you don't ever want to take advantage of that. You don't ever want to just be dishonest. But what is he talking about? A trust and simple faith. That's it. A trust and simple faith is there that just accepts it. Because that trust and simple faith in the one dispersing that information, giving that, it is believed in the heart of that child that there is no malintent there. There is nothing harmful, nothing disingenuous, nothing dishonest. That it's just real. We know as parents, we know this, how easy it is to start holiday legends with our kids. You just tell them. And when they're little, they believe it. I remember that. I remember that. I mean, my mom was really big into that. Again, and we can argue the right or the wrong of it, and we can get into all the silly weeds, okay? But the innocence of things, one that comes and gives gifts at Christmas, or one that whatever. We get all these different things. Hides a nickel under your pillow when you lose a tooth, whatever. Okay, yeah, it seems weird now as we get older, but we look back on the innocence of that. It gave one something to look forward to. And it wasn't hard to sell. You just told them, and they believed that. The reason Jesus is using this as an illustration is he's saying, children of God must be the same way in our faith. In other words, if God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Now that seems easier said than done because we live in such a skeptical world and because we've grown beyond the realms of that. Now we have to have a question mark behind everything. But, what does our faith display? Do I trust God or I don't? Do I believe what he says or I don't? There's really no gray area there. In other words, faith cuts through religion. Faith cuts through the ceremony and the rituals, and it simply believes. It just doesn't get any easier than that as far as the explanation is concerned. Living it out, understanding it, learning it, growing in it, that's a daily process. And there are times, we know this, that we're going to be tested. There are times that our faith is going to be tested. Why? Because we're still human. And quite often humans forget. And what do we forget? Who we belong to. Who is ours? Who created us? I mean, we do, friends. We get off the beaten path and we start going down our own journey and everything starts falling apart. But oftentimes that's when there's a little reminder, there's a nudge there saying, hey, that's not the way this has to be. It doesn't have to go this route. We who are his, we are oftentimes reminded through different situations, different circumstances of who he is and what he can do. We don't need to lose sight of that. And again, I realize that we live in an overwhelming time with all kinds of different stuff. But friends, understand the value of living out, walking in, embracing what we say we believe. See, real faith builds trust. Not just in anything, but real faith builds trust in God. Real faith is not awed by titles and offices. Real faith is not awed by celebrity and over the top, attention. Now, am I speaking down toward any one particular person? No. But what we've learned to do is we've learned to, in society today, we've placed celebrities and politicians and even pastors and different people of major titles and importance on pedestals they shouldn't be on. Why? Should we not respect someone? Absolutely. Should we not have appreciation for someone's talents or abilities? Absolutely. But we should only worship one, and that's God. But oftentimes we see today celebrity worship, political worship, athlete worship, all these different stuff. Now one may argue with me and say, well, we don't go to an altar and bow down to them. Or that. Well, in many ways people do. They spend tons of money on their merchandise and they think they can do no wrong. And then when they fall or they have an issue, everybody is so crushed and disappointed. Well, they're people just like me and you. And the likelihood that any of us could do that is very high. Not that we intend to. Nobody sets out, I would hope not, nobody sets out to just be awful. There's only a few people that I know that are that way. And they need to get saved. I mean, they need to come to understand the love of Christ and change their heart. But in general, when we place our faith in something, it needs to be something that is substantial, something we can lean on, something that will not fail us. And that is only found in the person of Christ, period. I mean, we just see that. And so faith, when we place our faith correctly in the presence and in the power of God, then we not only have faith in his ability, we don't place any limits on that ability. In other words, when we say, I know God can do it, we actually believe that. It's not just a statement. It's not just a cliche. It's not just a cool t-shirt. We actually believe it. Childlike faith is what Christ is seeking, because he said, if you don't have that, then you're filled with skepticism, speculation, questions, and doubt. And in the process of that, you're not trusting me. You're asking me to prove something. God's already proven everything. The cross settled everything. It's been proven there above and beyond anything we could even imagine. Faith in the life of every believer is one that needs to rise to the challenge when it comes our way, because we know that it's going to. Okay, that's going to happen. But if we have a faith that is truly built on the conviction that God can do anything and that by him and through him anything is possible, that allows us to face each and every day with a little bit of joy and a little bit more each day that comes by, knowing that I may not get the answer today, I may not get it tomorrow, but I know that it's coming because I know God will not fail me. Okay? Period. There's a song that goes, God has not failed me, but then they add the word yet. God won't fail you. Period. Okay? We don't need the yet. That's almost like change. That's not like a conversational change word like but. Everything's great, but no. God will not fail us, and we need to understand it. And that is placing that childlike, simplistic faith in His ability, because we live in a world that is filled with doubt, a world filled with fear and disbelief in pretty much everything. Okay, but the believer must come to a trust in the power of God and step out in faith. And much like I use this in illustrations all the time. But looking back to the story of Peter and Jesus, if we're ever going to walk on water, we got to be willing to get out of the boat. And that takes faith. Faith in action. What does that look like? We'll talk about that tomorrow. God bless you, friends. Have a great rest of the day.